Hey guys, reading chapter one today, Nine Figure Mindset by Brandon Dawson. Guys, go buy this book from Brandon. Does an amazing job. Forward was by John C. Maxwell, along with the video. Just absolutely crazy awesome information. Chapter one, Tough Love from a Friend. Pull over. The order came from Hector Lamarque, my golfing buddy and friend, the guy who is sitting in the cart with me as I approached the ninth hole on the Bighorn Golf Club in Palm Desert. It was a beautiful Southern California day, but I hadn't really noticed the lush greenery or warming sunlight. I had spent the first 8 holes bitching to Hector about all the bastards I had to deal with in my previous company. Come to think of it, I had been whining about them for a lot longer than 8 holes, probably more on the order of 12 months. That's how long it had been since I'd been removed from my company, the one I founded and grew by the sweat on my brow. Hector wrote something down on his scorecard. I didn't love what he looked at me as he handed it to me. On the scorecard was a simple phrase: what you think is what you say. What you say is what you do. What you do is what you're known for, and it's your legacy. Then he looked me in the eye and said, if you want to know where you're going in the future, just listen to what you're talking about right now. And what you're talking about now is everything that went wrong in the past, he continued, his eyes steadily holding mine. So you're only going to find more of what you're focused on, things going wrong. And until you find what worked in the past and what you would do differently in the future and accept responsibility for what you screwed up, you have no choice but to continue to fail forward. You're an amazingly talented person, but if that is what you are going to choose, to learn nothing and be the same, I refuse to. With you as a friend, because you, Brandon, are better than that. Ouch, I didn't see that one coming. But that was the whole point, wasn't it? At the time, I was living way too much inside my own head. And as a result, I was alienating one of the coolest people I knew. A guy I viewed as my close friend was issuing a wake-up call. What was the matter with me? I met Hector in 1999 as we quickly established rapport. We shared a passion for golf and business and became golfing buddies. Hector is a good, honest man, fiercely loyal to his family and equally committed to his business. To my amazement, his most respected internal strength, his confidence, charisma, ability to connect with others were reflected in the externals of his life as well. My first impression after meeting Hector was that he was truly embodied the whole package. He was good looking, charming, soft spoken, and extremely respectful to people. His wife was amazingly beautiful and smart, and his children were extremely well mannered. He had beautiful homes and traveled the world. He did it all while making millions of dollars each year as the founder of Performance Consulting Group, a Primerica financial services group that worked to build teams in the financial services sector. I thought of him as Hector Lamarckable, and he was definitely someone I wanted to emulate in every way. I couldn't have articulated it at the time, but my golfing buddy furnished all the living proof I had needed to be reminded that when you're a good person on the inside, your life will mirror your mindset. I sustain that he had his priorities and values lined up just as true as the straight shot off the tee that lands with a gentle bounce smack in the center of the fairway. And now this guy for whom I had so much respect was telling me to stop being a drainer and stop acting like a victim all the time. If you had seen the two of us buzzing around the Bighorn Golf Course between 1999 and 2003, you would never have attached the word victim to either of us. We were among the exclusive club's youngest members, and we both boasted 5 handicaps. We comfortably rubbed shoulders with millionaires and even odd billionaires or two among those with whom we'd sit around after golf rounds for drinks and a meal while we talked about business with the confidence that comes from knowing we had built our companies from scratch. Sometimes I would go to one of Hector's events as a guest to watch what he was doing. His world was very different from mine. I ran a corporation. He worked as a consulting service provider, sales and development training for his for his teams in the financial services space. Hector and his people could absolutely pack a room with 2,000 audience participants who all had given up their Saturdays for the dose of his mojo. I would sit and shake my head as his participants easily slipped into role playing exercises and the kind of stuff I couldn't even get my own employees to do. I'm on a mission to create $1 million to create $1 million producers, Hector once told me. That gave me the idea to create $1 million producers in the hearing space, which was my industry, but more on that later. Our relationship was growing during a period that coincided with the terrorist attack of September 11th, 2001, when it felt like everyone who knew lost someone in the towers during this period, which devastated the American people and the economy. His businesses continued to grow. Hector's just got bigger and bigger, and he continued to blow right through the tech industry crash that added to the economic misery. My company was called Sonos Hearing Centers, which comprised a network of audiology clinics that sold hearing aids in the United States and Canada. I started the company in January of 1996 after quitting the hearing aid manufacturing company created by my then stepdad, which had grown significantly with the help of my mom. That company, Starkey, grew from the humblest of beginnings to an organization valued at $350 million when I left there in December 1995. It was family owned business and I had one I had worked at on and off since I was in sixth grade. By the time I went to work there as an adult, it was a very serious player in the industry. We'll get into the nitty gritty of Starkey a bit later, but suffice it to say, my experience there taught me a few things. First, it taught me most everything I needed to know about the hearing industry, which allowed me to make my own success in after I left. And second, it taught me everything I needed to know about how to wear multiple hats, how to be resilient, and how to sell. One of the things I did not learn was how to be a great leader, beginning with my own motivation for becoming an entrepreneur in the first place, including my lack of leadership as a founder. I thought I had quit Starkey because I didn't like the way the company was run, the constant infighting, the power struggles practiced by the leadership team, and I was perceived as a lack leadership style that allowed too much room for underperformance. But the truth was that my wanting so badly to be successful played a big part in the company becoming such a jungle. Sure, I worked my way up the ladder and made some money for the company myself with some clever ideas, but my ideas and success usually came at someone else's expense. My basic modus operandi was, hey, it's me against the world. People used to tell me I was walking on people. My retort was that you can't walk on people unless they are laying down. When I started Sonos, I applied the same ego driven approach to leadership, or what I understood to be leadership, calling all the shots that I'd seen in operations of Starkey. My business model was buy up mostly small mom and pop audiology clinics whose owners were at or nearing retirement. Stringing a couple hundred of these businesses together gave me leverage with the big manufacturers from whom my clinics would buy their hearing aids, which, by the way, did not include my stepfather's business, spiteful son of a gun that I was. I used my own wits and brashness to raise the capital I needed to launch Sonos. Then I used my sparks to get Sonos moved from the Alberta, British Columbia Stock Exchange to the American Stock Exchange, where I became one of the youngest people ever to ring the opening bell, according to the exchange, thereby fulfilling at least a version of my early dream I used to have as a kid growing up in Oregon. I even began expanding into Europe, where suppliers were eager to get a foothold in the American hearing aid market, in addition to expanding their shape in Europe. Quite the mover and shaker I was, that is, until June of 2002, when a private equity firm I had allowed to acquire a controlling interest in Sonos effectively kicked me out of my own company by bringing in a new CEO to sell it. I guess I hated them for it more than I thought, which explained why I kept cursing them and their kind during all those golf outings with Hector. I cursed them even though looking back at that period from a greater distance of time, I can't say I blame them one bit. I probably could have done the same thing with the CEO I have come to refer to as Brandon 1.0. You see, Brandon 1.0, the old me, exceeded the parameters of his character as far as his ownership partners were concerned. They saw me working deals with manufacturers in Europe that had the potential to create a whole new offshoot of Sonos' business model. That would be great for me, but not so much for them. I had rejected the sound advice of people I admired and respected, who had warned me against this new business for exactly that reason. That led the private equity firm to oust me before selling my baby to an international firm for far less than I had thought it was worth. And that's how I ended up with the time on my hands and monolithic chip on my shoulder, pulled over on the side of the ninth with Hector Lamarquable, delivering me the ultimatum. What I didn't quite grasp at the time was that while Hector had delivered the ultimatum as a friend who had earned the right to be brutally honest with me, he was offering something more valuable to Brandon 1.0 than friendship. He didn't tell me right away what it was, but I learned that the thing that was offering was mentorship. People often confuse friendship and mentorship. It's easy to see why. Both involve a close relationship, which one person cares for the other. Like a good friendship, a good mentorship involves mutual respect and willingness to learn. Like friendship, mentorship requires a great deal of trust from both sides. The mentor must trust in the mentee's earnestness and listening to what he or she has to say and applying it. The mentee must believe that the mentor has his or her best interests in mind and truly wants them to succeed. But there is a fundamental difference between a friend and a mentor that I had not understood until Hector offered me both to me. Mentor is about change, it's about development. You know the old saw about a friendship. A friend is someone who knows everything about you and still likes you. A mentor is who knows everything about you and still likes your chances of becoming something more. Mentor is someone who you allow to develop you. It would be hard to come up with a relationship, save marriage or parenthood, in which trust matters more than a mentorship. I have enjoyed the support and love of friends. I have learned from the coaches in both sports and business, but I never thought of them as mentors because they never changed the way I thought about life or behaved toward other people. In some cases, I looked for mentors but managed not to notice them even when they were standing right before my eyes. Some people might think I was just an independent minded, self reliant person, the kind of person a leader ought to be, right? Not really. For reasons I'll get into in a minute, the truth is I never trusted anyone more than I trusted myself. A mentor is someone you have to trust more than yourself. You've got to give up some control and take the action that a mentor recommends out of sheer faith that they have been there and know what to do. Such was the case with Hector, who was also so damn smart that he demanded my respect anyway. We finished our 18 holes that way. I wish I could tell you I played the lights out of the back nine, but to tell you the truth, I don't remember a thing about it. What I do remember is that afterward, Hector invited me over to his house for what would become the first mentoring session. Well, second, if you count the golf cart incident. He got out a piece of paper and drew a line down the middle of the page. Now, what I want you to do is this. In the left hand column, write down all the remarkable things you've accomplished in your life so far. On the right, write down all the things you wish in assessment if you had to do them over again, you would do differently. Okay, got it, I said. On the left side, I wrote down how I raised my first $1 million and then my first $6 million to get Sonos off the ground. I wrote down the moment I got to ring the opening bell on the American Stock Exchange, then raising my first 28 million. I included acquiring 120 businesses, negotiating global supply agreements. Then on the right side, I wrote down a considerable longer and more heavily annotated list of needs improvements. Items that included my lack of knowledge about finance and strategic development. Then I thought about leadership. Is that a strength or a weakness? Well, in all my years of working and leading others, I had formed no meaningful, trusting relationships. I managed by showing everything down my employees' throats and telling them to get it done. I could point to a very specific incident when wiser heads than mine gave me good advice that I ignored because, hey, I knew better. I was good at making money, so I didn't go to the would-be mentors and ask them for their guidance. I felt I had reached a place where I could figure it all out. Yes, leadership is definitely a right-hand column entry. I made the two lists and handed the page to Hector. Now what do I do? Asked. You mark down leadership as a weakness. So read John Maxwell's The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, Hector replies. You wrote down finance, so read Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lecter's book on cash flow quadrant. And then because my belief system had been so shattered, he told me to read Beyond Positive Thinking by Robert Anthony. Hector not only recommended the books, he went into an adjoining room and brought out copies for me so that I would not leave his house without some homework. That was when I realized that Hector and I had entered into my first ever mentoring relationship. Relationship in which he was saying, here are the gaps in your life. Here's what you need to know to fill the gaps. You need to learn it and then apply it. My gosh, it dawned on me. Hector is my real first mentor. Others had tried to mentor me, including my father and stepfather, but I didn't recognize it as such. Some might say it was the hallmark of a self made entrepreneur, but I think it is the hallmark of what I have come to call an entrepreneurholic. An entrepreneurholic is someone who forms an addiction to starting businesses that are less and less satisfying and generate smaller and smaller rewards. The condition arises when an entrepreneur has failed to understand their motivation for creating a business in the first place, which often leaves them unsatisfied and restless, even when they succeed by making money. Worse, an entrepreneurholic rarely learns from mistakes and is doomed to repeat them over and over again, leading to yet more ventures and attempts to finally get it right. In my case, I've been working and earning money, more or less uninterrupted, since I was in fifth grade, living and working by my wits, taking no prisoners and burning my bridges as I went. The thing about entrepreneurs is that sometimes they play hero and sometimes they play the victim. But in either case, they are dominated by fear: fear of failure, fear of loss of esteem, fear of lack of control. Name a poison. They also become trapped in an endless rehearsal of the past, which often leads to making bad decisions. During my victim phase, for example, I met a fellow playing golf who wanted to partner with me in a business on a project with $1 billion upside potential. I was so wrapped up in anger and licking my wounds that I told him I was going to pass. He built a company and sold it for $1 billion in 3 years. It would have been an experience of a lifetime to have learned from this man while being part of the $1 billion sale. But it was just as Hector said: when your thoughts are fixed on what happened in the past, you're thinking about what you should be doing now and in the future. So I missed a few great opportunities because I was being a little drainer. No, I missed doing what I was meant to do because I was trying to prove myself to all those people whose names came at the end of those swear words I peppered Hector's ears with. I was a vengeful entrepreneurholic. Holy smokes, the first thing I have to do as I was break out of this cycle was to discover or create a whole new purpose for my future projects. As I drove away from Hector's house, all I could think was thank God, and thank God I found a mentor who was willing to tell me to shut my mouth and open my mind and figure out where I wanted to go, to bury the past and create the future. Go read these books, find the answers to your questions, and then come back to me. When Hector's parting Yoda esque words, that's exactly what I did. And then he has an additional resource section. So great first chapter by Brandon Dawson. Once again, Nine Figure Mindset is his book. Please purchase that. Um, some of these things hit home in chapter one. I'm excited to see what he brings through in further chapters. But I have really retooled myself in the recent and shut down the past and got with my mentor and created what we're doing now and into the future. So I can really relate to that first chapter. Have an amazing